And next on the line is Near. What do you have for us?
Yeah, near. How could you top that?
Yeah.
I don't think I can, bro.
God damn it. Oh, God. I have to blot out my memories after this one. All right. What do you got, Near?
I think you mean you have to go fucking watch that shit later, bro.
Oh, get to the Omega verse.
Yeah, bro. It's right up your alley. You're into that Giants Bride or whatever the fuck that shit was called that you watched.
Giants, giants, fucking humans. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
Um
god.
yeah, I watched Blue Archive, the animation. Wow, we zip zap.
Yeah. So this also kind of. I mean, this was one of the biggest kind of. Um, I don't know whether I would say blow ups, but it's like there was a bunch of hullabaloo going on recently on social media about this anime, right? I think.
Yeah, I mean Blue Archive,
Yeah.
so this is a game adaptation, obviously. Blue Archive being
Pretty famous
one of the
story.
more successful and popular gacha games out there. Um, it made it past its first 6 months of service. Uh, so in that
Omedetou.
in that in that regards, it is financially a success, right?
Yes.
It's a Yostar game, therefore it is done by Yostar Pictures.
Mhm.
Um, and what is this
Published by
studio
Nexon, I
Candy
think.
Box? I don't know what this is, but main production Yostar Pictures, which is sort of their in-house anime studio that they founded after the what was it, like the fucking travesty that was the Azure Lane anime. Um, and yeah.
Actually, that reminds me. Didn't Azur Lane have that spin-off anime with just the lolly girls or whatever? Right.
Um,
Um,
I think
so
so, yeah.
something like Slow Ahead or whatever it was called.
Yeah.
In
Is
the
this
better, the
essentially the
much better
spiritual
one?
success? Yeah. Is this the spiritual successor of that anime here?
Um, I guess, yeah, in a way. So
Yeah.
yeah, for those who don't know, Blue Archive is full of lollies. It's I don't think there is a single of age girl in the
Because they're all
game.
supposed to be schoolgirls, right?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all supposed to be students,
Yeah,
students, quote
Wrong.
unquote. Um,
Wrong.
yeah. Like
Uh,
the quote unquote older students are all like 17. Um,
mm.
I think there's like one like teacher or whatever, female character, but
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. So I
Wow.
think you're
One
incorrect.
whoa, one adult woman? That's crazy. Um, so the basic general synopsis is the world of Blue Archive is basically like this weird, super high-tech mega city, and within the mega city, there's a bunch of huge, big high-tech mega schools, and within those schools are students, and all the students have guns, and they shoot each other for reasons, um, and they're also immune to bullets, and they have halos, and hijinks ensue. And the main character in the game is you, the player, also known as Sensei, and he
Yes.
he helps out
But how old
a.
is the player?
How old are you? There you go.
Yeah.
And he
Damn.
helps
So
out.
every sensei's at least in their 30s. Like who plays Blue Archive when they're like 12?
I don't know. I'm
I
sure
will
there's.
Doesn't
I'm sure there's
matter.
probably. I'm
somebody.
sure there
Damn.
are like high
I'm sure there's.
school
I'm sure there's a
people.
few. I'm sure there's a few Japanese people out there that are fucking hooked on gotcha games by age 10.
Yeah.
Um,
Why is the sensei a male? Aren't there female players of Blue Archive? This show
um,
is sexist.
I'm pretty sure in the game I don't know. Actually, do they gender sensei in the game?
No, they just called it, I don't know whether so at best you would have this sort of thing where it's like the dialogue would be like karewa or whatever like they
Yeah.
kind of
I
are
don't. Yeah,
referring
I
to.
don't think
But
they
I
gender the
I don't think there's
sensei, and
any
they
mention of that.
only.
So yeah, they literally only use the word sensei to refer to you
Yeah.
even when they
I'm
speak to other
pretty
people.
I'm
So
pretty
they
sure
keep it
like
gender neutral.
I'm pretty sure even in Contact Collection the Admiral was male. So
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Content
I mean,
Collection,
typically,
like
typically a lot
their
of these are.
view is a little bit different. But I think for Blue Archive, I don't think they
s-
have even a
they
single line
so
where
they literally went.
Contact Collection was also earlier, an earlier game as well. Like a lot of earlier
yeah, yeah, yeah,
games,
yeah.
They
especially could
literally
do
went the
that.
peace sign route, huh?
Yeah.
Producer
Yeah.
is male.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, the sensei is sort of assigned to help out a group of students from the school Abydos, which is basically this rundown shithole of a school.
You're,
Um,
by the way, sorry to interrupt. You're still describing the game and not the anime, right?
well, the anime is a direct
So the next important question
adaptation.
is, how is this structured? Is this structured as sort of like Idolmaster the animation with the JC's A1 kind of thing, where, or sorry, the A1 pictures kind of thing, where they have the sensei slash whatever, the producer, blah blah blah. They have it as an actual character in the anime, and it's an active role,
Yes.
or okay, so it's
Yeah,
not like a Yuri
he's
kind of
there.
thing.
Yeah, he's there. He talks. It's not like a
He's not the
fucking.
main character? What
He's
was
not really. Um,
okay.
so obviously in the game, everything sort of takes place from Sensei's perspective because
Yes.
Sensei is the player, right?
Yeah.
And you're playing the game. But in the
Yeah, yeah,
anime,
yeah.
it's sort of it doesn't really take any specific perspective. Although I would say I feel like Shiroko is kind of the main character in the early episodes.
Mhm.
It really kind of focuses on her. Um, but yeah, it's not really from like Sensei's perspective in the anime. It's more from just kind of like the group of girls, and Sensei is like there. He's just like kind of part of the group.
So it's
Um,
kind of like an almost like a weird second person view almost
yeah,
kind of thing
kind of.
where it's the focus is on the girls and how they interact with each other. But the world is still structured in a way where Sensei, which will be the first kind of the main character in the game, is still part of that universe.
Yeah. So
Okay.
from what I understand, because I haven't played, because I've been playing Blue Archive the game
Okay.
for maybe like a month now, not
Your
long.
favorite near?
Okay.
What's your
Um,
favorite?
my favorite right now is Hina. I like Hina a lot. But from what I understand of the story of the game, is that Sensei is like really important. I don't know if there's like
Yeah.
timeline stuff or there's multiverse stuff
It's just
or
an idle
anything.
game, but with like
Um,
the girls
but
essentially, right?
apparently the story gets really heavy. And it sort of implies that like if Sensei wasn't around, pretty much all of these girls would be dead. Um, it's kind of one
Yeah,
of
again,
those.
it's kind of like a heavier version of what happens in Idolmaster essentially, right? Where
Yeah,
it's like
like
the
where if
producer is very central.
I was
yeah,
gonna say it's more along the lines of the last master of the world, kind of.
sort of, yeah.
Yeah,
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 like
yeah.
if Sensei wasn't around, pretty much everything would go to shit. All the girls
Yeah,
would be
yeah, yeah, yeah.
crying. There would be no Nakama.
Yeah.
You name it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah.
Suka Suka but gacha
So
game? Yeah.
obviously like if in order to like adapt the story, they can't really make Sensei not pivotal. But yeah, it's not really from his perspective, which is an interesting
Yeah.
choice, I think.
Yeah,
I
Um,
mean, it's
how do you
something that
feel
we've
about
seen before, but yeah.
like in other series of this type, like the main character, like the main character that you represent is usually like anonymous and mysterious and doesn't talk, but this one
Yeah, there are
plays
a
an
few
actual.
examples of that of this sort of thing happening. I think the most infamous ones are probably a Kankale, where the Kantoku didn't appear uh until way later, right? Like almost at the end for season one and stuff like that, and then it was just kind of
and I
eh,
don't think he
like
even spoke, right?
yeah, 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 he didn't even speak. He just like patted somebody's head or something like
He just
that,
patted
and
Fubuki's
then
head.
yeah, yeah, and then I think the most famous one in my mind, that kind of changed the format and or the perspective significantly was, in my opinion, uh, it was Kohime Muso, where they literally even just removed the male character entirely and just
Yeah,
made it a Yuri series.
yeah,
So,
that shit was
how do you?
retarded.
Yeah, that was not good. How do you feel about this? Because it's sort of obvious what the point of Blue Archive, the game, is, right? It's like you are the hero. You are at the end of the day, you're macking on the girls, right? So
Platonically,
for the anime, platonically, yes, in a
legally,
very
in a legal
pure, yeah,
sense.
wholesome way, yes, in a way that will not get any of us arrested, essentially. Uh, but how do you feel about this change in structure, um, in the anime?
I think it's pretty interesting because despite this sort of perspective shift, it's a
Yes.
really faithful and straight adaptation. And
Okay.
I think the reason that this works so well is because so in a lot of you know how in a lot of really early gotcha game stories, the main character is like nothing. They're like literally
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even a
yeah, yeah,
character, right? Like
yeah.
early FGO, when you have like dialogue choices, it's like hello,
Dot, dot, dot.
or
Yeah,
yeah, or like
it's like the Pokemon.
ellipses,
It's like the
or it's
Pokemon
yeah, it's
thing.
like
Yeah.
I'm here now. Like you literally have like no personality. And then as the
Yeah.
game sort of goes on, the community sort of generates their own sort of fan like headcanon of like how the main character would act,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the developers sort of pick that up and start writing that into sort of the character interactions, right?
Mhm.
Um, Blue Archive doesn't really do that. The sensei's pretty expressive and comedic. You know, he does a lot of jokes. Like you have a lot of like jokey dialogue options very early on, right? So I think the sensei is a bit more of a goofy character from the get-go, which I think really helps this sort of perspective shift and like
Right.
keeping like sensei from like because a lot of these they sort of have to rewrite the main character, right? Um,
Yeah.
but in this, you kind of just have to be like, oh well, you know, sensei's kind of just a goofball, right? And you just
Mhm.
kind of go from there. And I think it works pretty well. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, in terms of the main story, again, the basic setup is basically the main five girls are like in debt, and they're basically trying to save their school, and they do a bunch of odd jobs here and there. They pay off this debt stuff. They make like a discovery that the people that are sort of they're paying these debts to are actually like actively working against them to get the school shut down, and it sort of goes from there. Um, the story early on is pretty simple. It's a lot of like comedic stuff. There's a lot of character work, just simple character interactions and stuff. Um, Again, I've heard it gets really heavy later on. I don't know how deep, um, like I don't know how far this series is going to go in terms of like how much it's going to adapt. Although I'm almost positive this is going to get like a season two or a second core or whatever. It's currently slated for
Yeah.
5 episode or 12 episodes. There's five out right now. Um, they've gotten like really not very far. Um, the the episodes that are up to right now is
Well,
like
when you're saying not very far, let's say this story. God damn it. Yeah, I agree that it's at least going to get a second season, so it's a little bit hard for me to phrase this question in a simpler way. But let's say this show, like you're in the producers committee, and you know that this show is going to end uh, after 2 seasons, right? So, assuming with that assumption, what do you think would be the most probable end to season two?
I want I don't, all I want to say is I want Saori. Tell me when she shows up. She's cool.
um I mean again, I haven't really read that much of the story so far,
Oh, the
so
original story. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Okay.
I don't really know what a good like end point would
Okay.
be. But from
Okay.
what I'm guessing, there's probably a relatively decent climax slash cliffhanger point um where they will sort of leave off either at the end of this season or
Mm.
probably at the end of next season. Because again, I really think this is like this definitely has money behind it. Blue Archive
Yeah,
is
for
fairly
sure.
popular. This is very likely getting a second season. I feel like there's probably going to be some sort of cliffhanger point where they leave off on, and effectively they're like, "Go play the game, bitch!" Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, this is a marketing tool, right?
Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah,
is an
yeah.
advertisement for the game. Um,
100%.
and so that's probably what's going to happen. I think it'll be fine. But yeah, out of the 5 episodes that they're out right now, they're only like just now getting to like the introduction to Gehenna, which is like one of the big schools. And they're sort of like they call it like the prefecture team or whatever. Um, and they sort of come in and stir shit around for a bit. But yeah, they're only like just now getting to that. Um,
No.
so I think it'll be interesting. The pace is relatively slow, but I don't think it really matters too much because, again, I think a lot of the appeal of this show, I will say, the show definitely feels like it's obviously geared like a lot of the writing and character interactions, like the expanded character interactions rather, are definitely geared more towards fans, obviously, right? Like people that have played the game, read the story, because there's a bit more there. Because obviously in the game you just have like just the characters are talking back and forth in speech bubbles, right? Um, so you obviously have to expand a bit more on scenes, and they've done a pretty good job with that. Um, uh, there are some new scenes here and there, which is nice. Um, but yeah, it does feel a bit more geared towards like people that have already watched it or know what's going to happen. Because there are some stuff, there's some like sort of looks that characters give that sort of indicate, there's a bit more going on behind, the jokes and stuff, which is cool, I guess. But yeah, it's pretty fun. I will say I'd say the probably closest comparison I'd say is kind of I guess ironic because it's another mobile game adaptation, but it's very similar to the Precone anime, where like it's like a lot of jokes, right? Um, and then there's an action scene here and there because
So how yeah, so most of it's just like the characters setups and then plus I guess maybe some minor interactions with like sensei or whatever. And then plus the a little bit of plus the comedy and a little bit of action, right? I
yeah,
think um so is season 1 just going to end with mostly the character setups and then plus a little bit of the cliffhanger as you said? Essentially from the
probably.
way it's going?
I mean, I
Yeah.
see that's sort of the way it's going. Um,
Okay.
like I said, the pace is relatively slow. So
Okay.
I don't see them covering like a lot of ground in the next like 7 episodes. It's
Mhm.
possible they could truncate a shitload. Um, but I feel like that would probably not go over well with the fans, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone wants like their favorite moment or whatever to be animated, right? So,
Yeah.
When's the
um,
railgun event gonna get animated?
yeah.
You want to go over the
Um,
audio visuals a little bit, or
yeah, audio visuals. Again, this is Star Pictures. They're also doing Loser Ranger this season, so they've got kind of got their hands full. Um, previously they've been working on the Arknights anime. I don't really know if people like that or not, because I don't play Arknights anymore. But it did look pretty decent, I guess. Um, as for the audio visuals here, they're pretty good, I'd say. Um, the color palette is pretty nice. The character acting is really nice in some parts. There's a lot of um, really nice movement and stuff they do. A lot of the clothes are animated pretty well. There's definitely some pretty good talent behind this. The action scenes are decent to good. I will say the one thing I'm mainly disappointed by is the sound design in this show. A lot of the
hmm.
like for an anime that's about like girls shooting guns, um, they kind of just use like stock like sound pack gun effects, and it's pretty weak, I'd say. I kind of wanted. I know it's asking a high bar, but I want another anime that has sound design like fucking um
Witcher
Fate Grand
Mercury.
Order, like Fate Grand Order's Babylonia front. That shit was crazy, dude. Um,
Speaking
that
of
shit
uh,
rocked.
speaking of sound design, you reminded me in a Seed Freedom. I believe the Wyndhams. They gave the Wyndhams the Star Wars blaster sound effects. That was weird as hell.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Are
sure
there
that's
any
a I'm pretty sure that's a stock sound.
Halo sounds? Any
I
Um,
don't
Halo
know.
gun sounds in there?
but yeah, like the, I think the Nonomi's fucking minigun uses like the stock like AK sound from like fucking GoldenEye. Like it's
What?
very like it's
All
very
right, I'm gonna have to watch this because that
like
is.
if you watch the show like anytime they're shooting, it's like I've heard this sound effect in like RPG Maker games. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely they downloaded like a like royalty free sound pack or some shit,
Oh my
and they just
god.
use that. The guns sound very weak.
That's
Gonna
very
take us back to
unfortunate.
fucking like edgy Flash games.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
It's gonna be like
Um,
the Star Wars Stormtrooper stuff.
yeah. That's probably the only disappointing thing I'd say out of the audio visuals. The OP is really nice, I'd say. Um, it's what is this? Station No Archive. It's sung by the main cast. I'm pretty sure the main girls. It's a pretty nice song. The visuals themselves are really nice, although they're a bit seizure-inducing. They do a lot of really fast cuts. Color palette's really nice. The color palette for both the OP and the ED have this really nice. I don't know if it's like a shading thing or a digital effect that they're using, but the lighting all looks very like it's either a sunset or a sunrise. There's a lot of like god rays and stuff. It looks really nice. It's very shiny.
Mhm.
The ED is super cute. It's got a lot of really nicely animated like first person perspective shots, which I'm assuming are from the sensei's perspective. They're pretty cute.
Mhm.
Um, it's the ED song is Mahito no Sora Natsuki, also sung by the main cast. It's pretty nice. Little track. It's very cute. Um, I do kind of wish that the main show used similar colors to the OP and ED, but I'm assuming that would probably cost a lot more money. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, audio visuals, they're pretty good. I will say some shots are a bit flat. Sometimes the faces look a bit funny in the backgrounds, but overall it's a nice looking show. It's very colorful.
Right.
Um, the movement's done very well. But yeah, overall pretty good showing from Star Pictures.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think obviously they've um been I don't know whether I'd say on the up and up necessarily because I don't know whether Yostar Pictures because they are ultimately in house for Yostar, the game making company.
yeah,
I don't know whether how much they're going to branch out, although they are obviously doing a lot of in between work and secondary animation work and key animation work for stuff like Chainsaw Man and other anime, right?
yeah,
But beyond that, I don't know how much they're going to be on the forefront of main animation production and being the main core staff for some more bigger anime in the future, but they've certainly been learning a lot, or they've certainly been training their staff quite a bit through all of these different, side projects as well as making OVAs and stuff for their games, like Arc Knights, I think most recently, as well as Azure Lane and stuff like that.
yeah,
I think,
yeah.
yeah,
I think they also handle all the like animated PVs and stuff for their games as well, stuff like that.
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
so you know, good showing. I will say I think the soundtrack is kind of just like
Oh.
a worse version of the game's soundtrack. Like I don't know if they're remixed or
So who you're saying whoever was the overall sound director plus music guy, like that duo is just like it needs to be
yeah,
get out
I
of
think
here,
they
see the door.
I think they dropped the ball a little bit. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say because like Blue Archives the game soundtrack is quite good. It's got some nice tunes. It's got
Uh-huh.
some pretty
What's the
upbeat.
famous one? Is it Crazy Classroom or whatever? What's it called?
Yeah, I think so.
Unwelcome
Um,
Un-
unwelcome school. It is
Oh,
unwelcome story.
that's the one that
The Penis
everyone
music or
uses.
whatever.
Yeah, I know that one because I've seen that on in the background of so many Korean like videos and stuff like that these days.
Yeah.
I can't even. Yeah.
But yeah, like a lot of the tracks that you hear in the anime are kind of just like, oh, I've heard this in the game, but it doesn't sound very good here. I don't know. I don't know if it's just the mixing or what, but
Yeah.
yeah, it is kind of just like a worse version of the game soundtrack. Not that that's like bad, but they definitely could have done better. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, overall, I'd say it's pretty good. It's a pretty good showing. It's good
Mm-hmm.
adaptation. It's very straight adaptation, right? Which is, you know, what we've sort of come to expect from these mobile game adaptations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, obviously, we've seen the sort of backlash to unfaithful adaptations with stuff like, or not even necessarily unfaithful, but just like adaptations that people don't really want with stuff like Concole, right? People did
Mm-hmm.
not really react to,
The this
not
the
react to
second what is it? The
positively.
second one did it better.
Yeah. Um, so a lot of
Well,
these, obviously, these mobile game adaptations are gonna be pretty straight. I think they did a good job. They animated a lot of the bits really well. Um, yeah, it's good. If you liked something like Precone, I think you'll really like this, even if you don't play the game.
I think,
And
and I also think that's this is also one of the more rare times where these sorts of like mobile games were initially made and then an anime made afterwards ended up being pretty watchable. You know what I mean? Because there's not that many anime adaptations that come out afterwards that do that successfully. You know,
yeah, and I think it
kind of like
helps
a
that
curse almost. Yeah.
the beginning of Blue Archive is very light. You know what I mean? Like there's
Mhm.
really not much. Like it's not something like Fate, right, where you gotta sort of
It's more flexible. Yeah.
yeah, you're not really blasted with all this lore and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
you can kind of just
And it's not like the Demon King is going to fuck up
yeah
the fucking planet, which is I think it makes for a more. I think what happens actually because it seems kind of paradoxical, right? Because you would think that if a game has a more straightforward plot, hey, all the anime needs to do is translate that into an anime adaptation, as opposed to having a more open format, which is a little bit harder to make a story around. But I think why that paradoxical effect happens is because once that story happens in a game, it's kind of floats off into the ether, right? It becomes open ended because the game's point is not to advance the story, really. The game's point is to advance the game and make you buy more shit, right? So it
yeah
becomes open ended. Whereas the anime has to take this premise that has clearly has some sort of ending somewhere and has to just like run with it somewhere. It has to make its own pacing. It has to do all its own shit. So it's like if the game's premise starts out with "and the demon lord destroyed your home, so you have to get revenge," then suddenly the anime has this shit dropped on them, and they have to resolve it in like 12 episodes. So it's
yeah
like, oh
yeah.
fuck, yeah. So
But
yeah,
yeah, overall, I think it's definitely worth watching.
yeah.
You know, it's a very
Mhm.
casual watch. Um,
Uh-huh.
so you know, if you're interested in maybe playing Blue Archive, you know,
Yeah,
this is definitely something that's
would you say a person who hasn't read or experienced Blue Archive at all, like, would be okay with just watching this anime? Would
definitely yeah.
okay.
Um, it's very easy to get into for sure.
Okay.
Like I said, it doesn't set up like a huge world or anything. It kind of just introduces like the characters, like here they are. Um, you might be a bit taken aback by all the fucking animal people walking around, but that's just you know, it's just
Yeah.
something that the game never
Animal
really
ears, bro. Let's
yeah,
go.
the game
Yeah.
never really explains that why there's just like straight up fucking dog people. But
The
they're
answer is because Nekomimi or and
They make the
Inumimi
best
is are cute.
ramen, dog.
yeah, true,
Yeah.
true. Um,
Yeah, that's
but yeah, there's some stuff that you might like, I guess, raise an eyebrow at, but it's like it's one of those things where it's, don't worry about it.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, if you like something like Precone, I think this is definitely up your alley. If
Mhm.
you like, even just like girls in a club stuff, right? I think this probably probably a pretty good watch.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's fun. It's got cute girls. Um, yeah.
What would you rate it?
What more do you need? Um, I'd probably give it. I'd give it a strong 7.5. Yeah, probably.
Simplify. Okay.
Yeah,
Is
pretty good.
that before or after Saori shows up?
Um, well, the one I want to see is Hina, so
So
she
before.
she should show up. She should show up soon. But yeah, it's good.
All right.
I like it.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much. I know again this was a thing that mm, kind of came up, right? And people were, I think I at least was having a lot of thoughts on whether it would end up being okay or not, but I'm glad that it did end up being pretty good. Obviously, nobody is out here wishing that anime will just fail and suck or whatever, right? But it is good that it came out um, much
Yeah, I
better
mean
than
these
expected, I
these
would
mobile
say.
game adaptations can always flop, right? I mean
Yeah,
we've
yeah, yeah.
seen like how many like just game adaptations in general just be
Yeah, yeah,
nothing
yeah, yeah.
like what the game is. I mean just look back at fucking God Eater, right? Like God
Yeah.
Eater, the God Eater adaptation had pretty much everything going for it. Like that was by Ufotable
Yeah.
too, wasn't it? Um,
Yeah. And there was
and
also that one, I think, Tactopus that had a shit ton of
yeah,
money, right? It
yeah.
was being sponsored by Banco. I think that one might have had youth table, or at
It
least it
was
had one of like the
it was like
Madhouse plus Trigger.
Madhouse and Mappa,
Yeah,
like
Madhouse
double
and Mappa
team,
or
right?
like Mappa Trigger, some ridiculous fucking
Yeah, it was some
collaboration.
crazy
Yeah,
shit, and that
yeah,
game shut down. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so
yeah,
very unfortunate. Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much, Nier. Again, we're both fans of Blue Archive, and for people who are might be more curious about Blue Archive, but don't necessarily want to end up downloading the game and accidentally chucking in $500 into it, you might be more amenable to checking out this anime, Blue Archive. So if you do have the time, please do check this out. Note that again, it might be a little bit slightly different structure than you might expect because again, it doesn't have the sensei, the male self-insert main character, as the focus. It has the girls as the focus. So please do make note of that.